I will go ahead and call to order the Tuesday, January 14th, 2025 Plan Commission. First, a notice, effective January 1st, 2025, all public meetings in the city of Auburn will be live streamed on YouTube. So please make sure your microphones are activated when you speak so it can be picked up. Also, if you're in the audience, please make sure you've signed in the back so we have your name on record. And if you plan to speak, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record as well. Can we get a roll call, please?
Tammy Bailey.
Here.
James Fincham.
Here.
Logan Zuber.
Here.
Chris Lamb.
Here.
Mike Makarowicz.
Here.
Daryl McConnell.
Here.
Devin Bolin.
Here.
Lucas Straw.
Here.
Joseph Schultes.
Here.
John Good.
Here.
And Suzanne Davis.
Here.
I can confirm that we do have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is organizational business. For this portion, I'm going to turn it over to the city attorney to run nominations and appointments.
Yes. So for the first order of business, I think the mayor, would you like to address the commission? Okay.
Dave Clark, Mayor of Auburn. I've got one request for the commission. I'd like the commission's approval to appoint Ryan Shamball as administrator for the Building and Planning Department.
This is pursuant to the statute. The mayor gets to appoint the department head. The plan commission has the job of approving that appointment. So
do you need a motion to approve?
yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve the mayor's appointment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Congratulations.
All right, and then for the next order of business, we need to elect the officers of the Plan Commission. So I will open the floor for nominations for president.
I'll make a nomination for Jim Fincham to remain as president.
I'll second.
And we don't need seconds for nominations, but are there any other nominations?
I'll nominate John Good for vice president.
Well,
Do
let's
that after that.
we'll get to that. So I'll close the nomination for president. All in favor of John Good?
Jim
No.
Fincham.
Sorry.
Threw me off.
No.
Are you sure, John?
I'm not.
All in favor of Jim Fincham as president?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now I'd like to open the floor for nominations for vice president.
I'll nominate John. Vice president.
All right. Any other nominations?
I move they be closed.
Close the nominations for vice president. All in favor of John Good for vice president?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And I will open the floor for nominations for secretary.
I would nominate Logan Zuger again.
Any other nominations?
Move they be closed.
All right. All in favor of Logan Zuber as secretary?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All right. And then we have appointments. So we need a liaison to we need a nomination. Open the floor for nominations for the liaison to the DeKalb County Plan Commission.
I'd like to nominate Mike Makarowicz to be the Plan Commission's liaison to the DeKalb County Plan Commission.
Any other nominations?
I move to close.
All right. All in favor of Mike Makarowicz as the liaison to the DeKalb County Plan Commission?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We also need to determine the project advisory committee. And that is currently John Good, Daryl McConnell,
Mike.
and Mike McCarowich
And staff.
and staff.
I believe we have one more open seat available on that
Okay.
committee if anybody else is interested.
So if anybody else is interested, and that's that committee, obviously we can't have more than quorum, but we don't really need to go through the nomination process on that. And with the Unified Development Ordinance Review Committee, it's currently Jim Fincham and Logan Zuber, and we need one more member. Is anyone interested in joining the Unified Development Ordinance Review Committee?
And that commitment does not need to be made today because currently there's not anything pressing, but eventually there will be another review that will need to be done. Those meetings are not during like the day, usually 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock. So, I mean, it's a little more workable into people's schedule. So you don't have to volunteer now, but maybe ask later on if you're willing to.
Okay. And then finally, we need a ETJ member to the BZA and alternate member to the BZA. So I will open the floor for nominations for the ETJ member to the BZA.
I'd like to nominate Chris Lamb.
Any other nominations? Okay. Close the nominations. All in favor of Chris Lamb as the ETJ member to the BZA?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And then we need an alternate member in the event that Chris is not able to attend.
We have not, the commissioners have not appointed a replacement yet because we had to find a Democrat in the ETJ. They put a list together for me. I do have somebody who's interested.
Okay.
So we'll need to talk to her and see if they'll nominate, see if they'll put her in place.
And we've had a number of times where the alternate wasn't available prior to my joining as the alternate previously.
Sure.
So that can be an open vacancy for now.
Okay. All right. Then back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Well done. Anyway, on to the next item, approval of minutes. You should all have access to the December 10th, 2024 minutes. Any need to alter or any questions or changes needed? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Approve minutes as presented for the December 10th meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Is there any need for a agenda modification? Okay, seeing none, there's nothing underneath old business. Under new business, we have 3 items. The first being Rapid Leasing Development Plan. This is PC Development Plan 2024-14. I'd like to open the public hearing and turn it over to staff.
Thank you. Jim Cataret, City Planner for Auburn. For this request, Radford Leasing LLC, they're requesting development plan approval for what would be a gravel storage lot with potentially an 11,000 square foot canopy structure. It's located on an undeveloped property just south of the Radford facility there at 5005 County Road 29. This property currently is zoned I-2 heavy industrial. The property is located within the ETJ area of the city. All the surrounding zoning is industrial as well. The actual area, there's acreage. It's about a little over 6 acres to the south of Rathburn too. There's an existing gravel parking lot area and access off of the county road for this gravel parking lot area. The actual storage lot would be an extension of that gravel lot. At the east end of that lot, there currently is a small storage shed structure that will be removed. They'll extend the gravel drive to the back acreage, which is a little over 3 acres. The back acreage would be a gravel lot with a small detention pond area, with the canopy structure in the future being in the middle of that. This area would be secured by a fence as well. A couple of photographs of the property. If you're not familiar with it, this is the actual entrance to that gravel drive area, parking area to the south. This photograph shows the storage shed that will be removed, with the drive being in that location to the east. And then this is along the north property line of the property where the gravel lot would be. And this is just showing the property does slope towards the railroad track, which is borders the property on the south. We did not receive any public input as a result of our notices regarding this request. Our routing committee did review the development plan a couple of times, most recently on January 8th. They provided all their final comments, which is to approve the development plan. Then the project advisory committee met on January 9th to review this plan as well. The purpose of the lot is for storage of vehicles, recreational vehicles, boats, etc. Basically just an outdoor storage area. Again, it will be screened in with a security fence. There'll be a gate at that entrance drive that would allow access to the storage area. The parking lot area in front actually has 2 overhead lights. There will be a 3rd light installed as part of this project at the security gate, just to provide lighting for your keypad for entry into the facility. With the addition of this gravel, again, it's a lot of gravel going down on the property, but there's still quite a bit of open space overall on the property. They're allowed to have 80% lot coverage. They'll be at, they're allowed to have 75% lot coverage. They'll be at 60%. The county drainage board did review the drainage for this project. They will have to install a couple of inlets within the gravel parking area to collect the storm water. It will be then channeled to the north into a detention pond that would store the storm water before releasing it through a tile to the agricultural field to the north. And that's an existing drain tile for the existing Rathburn facility. So the drainage board has approved that drainage plan. So with that, staff does recommend approval of the development plan. We do recommend that with 2 conditions. Before we issue a permit to allow excavation work to commence, they have to have the appropriate erosion control measures in place. And then before the issuance of certificate of occupancy, all the site work as part of that development plan that's submitted to you this evening needs to be completed. We did submit proposed findings of fact for the development plan for your consideration as well. So that concludes staff report.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff from the commission?
Okay,
Thank you very much. Would anybody on behalf of Rathbone, the developer, like to come forward and speak on the project?
Yeah, questions I can.
Okay. They did a good job. Yeah.
I got one question on, is it contingent on the fence? I guess
Speak them up. Yeah, for the record, please state your name and.
my name is Jerry Rathburn. My question is this going to be contingent on the fence? We want to put that in at some point in time. Is the project contingent on the fence being around there, the chain link fence?
It is not. So it is not a requirement.
Okay.
Simply, I mentioned it, I think it was on the plan
We
showing
had
a
talked
security
about
fence.
that, right?
You wouldn't be held up in
Okay,
using the
that's
lot
what
without the
what.
fence.
Are there any questions on the project at all?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody in the crowd, audience, like to speak on or against the project? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Any further discussion among the Plan Commission?
Good use of the property.
All right next to railroad tracks, so good
Yeah.
place for it. Okay, can we have the findings of facts? I do believe they're on the last page. You can scroll to that. There we go. So there are 5 findings of fact that we do need to approve for this development plan. All are in the affirmative. I don't think there's any need to go through them individually, so I'll need a motion to approve the findings of fact for this PC development plan.
Move to approve PC Development Plan 2024-14. Findings of fact, all in the affirmative.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we just need to approve the development plan with the 2 conditions as well.
I'll make a motion to approve BC Development Plan 2024-014 with the 2 conditions.
I'll second.
We have a motion, a couple seconds. Any further discussion before we vote? All right, thank you. Let's have a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Congratulations. Good luck. Next order of business is Sonic. There's the development plan. This is PC Development Plan 2024-15. I'd like to go ahead and open the public hearing for this development plan and turn it over to staff.
Thank you. For Willie LLC, owner of this property, they're requesting development plan approval for a 1,493 square foot Sonic restaurant. It's proposed for property located at 1520 Shook Drive. It's just to the west of Smoltz Drive and south of State Road 8. The development plan does require a public hearing. It was advertised in the Star on January 2nd. There were 4 adjacent property owners notified of this hearing this evening. The property itself is zoned C2, general commercial. All the property surrounding it is zoned C2. So the development plan itself shows the property. This is a lot. It's basically what was the west portion of the, where Taylor Rental was, between Taylor Rental and where Thomas Realty is located at. This undeveloped property will have access off of Shook Drive. It'll be a new access drive. So the old Taylor Rental Drive that went in and come up of Shook, that drive goes away. If you remember, Mike's Car Wash had a drive approved that's further to the east. But there is the adequate separation between the drive that will go to Mike's Car Wash and the lot next to it. And then this drive going into the Sonic, and then the drive further to the west going up to the existing building. This has a one-way traffic flow going around the building and the property. Again, the main entrance off of Shook Drive with angled parking. It is a drive-through facility. And there's also a entrance and exit off of that drive that again goes to that existing building to the west. A couple of building elevations were submitted for the new restaurant. This is showing the different elevations. That's the south facing Shook Drive as well as the east, and then this would be the north elevation, the back of the building, and then this is the drive side of the building on the west. Also included, just for examples, these are just a couple of sample renderings of what the building would look like from other locations, but it shows you the general concept that they're looking for. It will have an outdoor patio area facing Shook Drive. It will have a couple of order spaces to pull up and order from your vehicle that we're all used to at Sonics. There will not be a canopy over those spaces, though, as what this photograph or illustration shows. A couple of site photographs looking from Shook Drive. There is a little bit of elevation of the property. It is a little bit higher than the Shook Drive elevation. This is looking south at the site towards the Home Depot. And this is looking west towards the Holiday Inn Hotel and this is southeast at the site. So you see it's entirely undeveloped, a little bit of elevation to it, but certainly a prime location for the facility. Staff did not receive any public input on our notices that we sent out regarding this request. The routing committee did review the development plan a couple of times, most recently on January 8th. We still have a couple of comments that need to be addressed, and so we propose a condition to address that. There are a couple of comments from engineering that still need to be addressed and revised on the plan sheets. Not something that would necessitate holding it up this evening, we don't believe. The project advisory committee did meet on January 9th to discuss this development plan as well. This development is part of Lot 2. Lot 2 is a larger lot within the Four Willie subdivision, and the lot is actually only going to be used for the south half. So Sonic is looking to be on the south half of the lot. The north half of the lot will remain undeveloped. They're not proposing to split the lot at this time. The current owner will retain ownership of the lot. But the development plan is set up to allow a potential split of that lot. So wanted to make sure that we don't want to create a nonconformity situation when we approve this development plan that would prohibit them or limit them from splitting the lot if they wanted to in the future. So that has been set up well. Access, as I mentioned, is off of Shook Drive. There will be no access off of State Road 8 to this lot for the north development of this lot when that happens. Again, I identified this is most of the customers will be drive-through. It's really being set up as a drive-through facility. But in that front patio area, there will be an order menu payment board where you could walk up on a nice day. You could walk up and order there and utilize the tables that'll be in the fenced-in area in front of the building. There'll also be a small indoor dining area for about 12 individuals to, again, order their food, but have a place to be able to sit inside the building. There are, I mentioned, the 2 parking spaces that will be drive-in spaces with the menu and order board. Parking for the facility is it's required to be 13. That's really based on the number of employees they'd have on their largest shift plus the size of the building. They're required to have 13 spaces. They have 17, so they're exceeding the parking. Again, it's a one-way flow through the parking lot. One thing that I want to note that is a little different about this project is the parking and drive areas are not curbed. Most of your commercial sites, you do see curbing on their parking lot. Is not a requirement of the city. So their parking lot area, again, is pavement and then to the grass area. They will have, of course, as part of the stormwater control, they will have swales on each side, east and west of the parking lot area, where stormwater will be able to go to and be collected. And there is, on that parking area, I mentioned the interconnectivity with an adjacent development. That's that drive access that goes to the west. The landscaping standards are all met. They have 67% lot coverage, and the landscaping along a drive is compliant with our code. There are increased architectural standards. This property is within our corridor overlay districts, so there are more strict architectural standards for the building and for the trash enclosure. They are compliant with those standards. They do show pedestrian access for the building, so there's a sidewalk along Shook Drive. They're showing a 6-foot sidewalk that would go from Shook Drive to be able to walk to the building and the main entrance to the building. I mentioned the outdoor dining area. It has a seating capacity of up to 24 individuals. It will not be covered. It will not have a canopy over it. It will be open, but there will be a railing to protect those from any vehicles encroaching upon it. The receptacle, again, does comply with our architectural standards. There will be 5 light poles to light up the parking lot area. All the site utilities are coming off of Shook Drive, water, sewer, electric. And the stormwater control plan was reviewed by the County Drainage Board. They approved it in December. They're basically collecting the stormwater on site, dispersing it to the existing storm sewer that's along Shook Drive, which then goes to the detention basin behind Home Depot. So we do believe all the standards of the UDO have been met, and so staff does recommend the Planning Commission approve the development plan and accept the staff report findings of fact. We do recommend a total of 6 conditions on this. Again, erosion control, the standard condition to be installed before they start work. They will need to secure a utility or service agreement. So in that front part of the property, the drive that goes in front of the outdoor seating area does encroach into a utility easement. So they'll need the utility service agreement to be approved by the Board of Works. I mentioned the routing comments that still need to be addressed. So I'll have to submit any plan sheets that need updating as part of that. And then prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy, they do need to provide a cross-access easement for that connection to that drive to the west, as well as they're showing a wider access easement. That drive that currently goes to the Thomas real estate office will actually serve as the access potentially for that anything that's built on the north part of this lot. So that would be the potential to widen that drive a little bit. I believe it's 22 foot now. It may need to be a little bit wider if you're going to serve another building to the north, but they are providing the necessary easements for that. We just need to have that easement recorded. They also need to show utility and drainage easements that are shown on the plan. We need to have those easements recorded as well. And then the final condition would be all the work as shown on the development plan needs to be completed to get a certificate of occupancy. So again, with that, staff recommends approval subject to the 6 conditions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff?
With the top end of that lot, is there enough clearance at the end of that drive to even access that north lot?
And part of it, what on the Sonic development plan, they're showing a increased width of that access easement. So there will be room to be able to curve a roadway that stays off the property where the Thomas Realty building is, with a little bit wider pavement of that access drive. But yes, there would be easements in place. If you can see on the plan here, the red dotted line is the actual access easement for this property. Plus there's an easement for the current drive. So there is adequate room to have a drive turn to get to the north line.
What percentage of lot covers did you say they had?
They were at, I thought, what did I say? 60, they're at 67%. Yeah. So they have some ability to reduce that and not exceed the 80%. That red line on the top is kind of an imaginary property line if the lot were to be split.
Anything else? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Would anybody from the development itself or like this step forward? Can you please state your name and
Todd Ramsey for Wellay Development. Just 2 things. All the easements that Jim was speaking of are with myself, so won't have any problems getting those. I didn't want you to worry about that. So, and I'm getting a little nervous how well Jim does with this because he takes all my thunder. I don't get to say anything. So I'll answer any questions you guys have. So you guys have it very lucky because I've been a lot of places you don't get service like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
anybody else in the audience like to speak to the project? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Any final comments, questions?
I'm just excited to see Shook Drive and potentially Lenore Lane starting to get developed now. So that's definitely a positive for that side of town.
Right before the traffic
Right before it all gets shut down, yeah.
Anyway, let's take a look at the findings of fact. We do have those for this development plan as well. So there are 5 again. There are standard 5. All are in the affirmative. So I need a motion to approve the findings of facts unless there's any questions.
I'll make a motion to accept the funding of facts for PC Development Plan 2024-015. In the affirmative.
Second. We have a motion, a second. Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And carried. Now, keep in mind, when a motion is made to approve this, we have the 6 recommendations under staff recommendation that need to be mentioned in that motion. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the development plan.
Move to approve.
PC Development Plan 2024-15 with the 6 conditions written.
Second.
Motion in a couple seconds again. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Good luck. Yep. And the third item underneath new business is the Dairy. This is the modified trash enclosures. In terms of the material, I do not believe a public hearing was required, so I just going over the staff response. Or is one? No, there is not one.
Yeah, well. Thank you. So this request, a little bit different than what we've been dealing with. This is an existing project, ongoing project, Dairy Queen, that you approved previously as part of the development plan. The project is very close to completion. And so this request filed by Travis Becker with Michael Kinder and Sons. They were the general or are the general contractor for the Dairy Queen restaurant that's under construction. It's at 1018 West 7th Street. They filed this request on behalf of TRH Estates LLC. And the request is to modify the materials that were utilized for the trash enclosure that was constructed or installed on the property. The modification they're requesting is to utilize colored vinyl fencing in lieu of the approved material, which was a stucco material. I have shown from the approved plans the trash enclosure elevations, which shows a different color for the enclosure, but more importantly, identifies that this structure was to have an exterior of stucco. And the stucco was a material very similar to the ethos material utilized on the building. The applicant did take a couple of photographs that I have placed here, and the photographs show the current trash enclosure, the way it was constructed. A different color, although the color is matching the base color of the building, but it is constructed of the vinyl fence material, which is not what was part of the approved plan. The specific requirement in question is part of our Unified Development Ordinance. So this property happens to be in our corridors and gateway overlay district. So we have a standard for all commercial development for trash enclosures for material to be utilized, but it's a higher standard. It's a more specific standard in the corridors and gateway overlay district. And I highlighted the language that we're really dealing with, where it says trash receptacles shall be enclosed with a solid enclosure that complements the architecture of the primary structure. Somewhat subjective, but typically what we see when the architects submit the plans as part of development plan is they'll take materials from the building and match those materials. whether it's brick or stucco, split face block, whatever that material on the building is what they're typically are utilizing on the trash enclosure. There's also a requirement to landscape around the trash enclosure. That's a corridor and gateway requirement. You can see the landscape plan shows landscaping, shrubbery going around the building. The again, I mentioned the UDO requirement itself, very specific language, and it only pertains to the corridors gateway district, which is 7th Street, both to the east and west of downtown, and then down along County Road 11A at the interchanges are other corridor districts. So only in those areas we develop, we have to comply with the enhanced materials for the trash enclosures. The intent of this district was really to promote a plan for rational, aesthetically pleasing, cohesive development along our major arterials. Those standards apply again not only to the trash enclosure but to the building. So it requires articulation of the building. It requires at least 3 different building materials, for example. And with those enhanced standards, staff ensures that when we first meet with a developer, an architect to go over a project, we talk about the standards because it's important. They're in this code because they're important to the community. And they really are coming out of the Auburn 2040 plan, where we wanted to really address our corridors and gateways into the city. So we have these enhanced architectural standards. I thought it important to look at a couple of examples of what is a compliant trash enclosure. This is just 2 of them. Bell Tire, clearly Bell Tire used the exact same materials as the building. And the Tube Car Wash used a split face block, which is also used on the primary building, and the colors match. And so those are just 2 examples, but we have others. A lot of our new projects, the Panda Express, Chipotle, the Texas Roadhouse, McAllister's, the 7th Street shop, they're all utilizing trash enclosures that match and complement the existing building. I do want to note the ProFed Credit Union building, which is next door. And that's really where this came out of, to be honest. The ProFed Credit Union building, again, beautiful building, brick stone building, very nice architecture, presence on 7th Street. I happened to notice, I was in the parking lot one day and saw the trash enclosure having a wood fencing around it. And I knew that wasn't acceptable. That just jumped out at me immediately when I saw it. I know that's not approved. I saw the Dairy Queen at the same time, when I noticed it, but I wasn't looking at the plans, and I didn't look closely at, what material on that. I was really focused on the ProFed. So at the time, I contacted the builder for ProFed and explained what the issue was. And again, the plan showed beautifully brick enclosure that matched the architecture of the building. That's what was approved, not what was constructed. And it just indicated what the options were. You don't have to have a trash enclosure unless you have a trash receptacle. So one of the options for the adjacent neighbor, the ProFed, was just eliminate it. Or you could, of course, take down the wood fence and put up what was approved, or request approval of the material to the Planning Commission. ProFed's example, they're just going to take the enclosure down. They don't need the outside trash receptacle. And it's not a requirement. If they have one out there, they have to enclose it. But if they don't have one out there, they don't need to. So that one's resolved. But when that one came forward in light of, looking at what could be done, that's when I took a closer look at the neighbor Dairy Queen, realizing that although it looks like it matches color-wise in that, the material of vinyl is not what was on the approved plan. So unfortunately, the ProFed issue kind of triggered us looking at Dairy Queen, which then got us to this evening. So MKS, which is building both facilities, and getting what the property owner for Dairy Queen did want to come forward with the request, which is this evening, to allow the existing closure of the vinyl fence material to remain. That is their request. So as staff looked at it, again, my initial reaction when I first saw the trash enclosure, I was focused on ProFed. That really jumped out at me. I noticed the Dairy Queen, the colors look good, but it's not the correct material. And when I looked at it a little bit closer, and when we were having our project advisory committee meeting, the question was asked, well, what if you reviewed the plans and it showed the vinyl fencing as a material? Would you have accepted that? And I wouldn't have. And that kind of put me over the edge as far as understanding if I wouldn't have approved it then why would I recommend it now? And I think they need to go again. The plan that was approved was the stucco material, which matches the material on the building. And so as I look at it with the enhanced standards that we're trying to accomplish with our overlay district, the fact that I wouldn't have recommended it, or that would have been a comment of ours saying that's not compatible. Under the when we review the development plan, I am recommending that the planning commission deny the request, which would then, if the commission agrees to that, they either have to not have a trash enclosure, which is not really an option for a restaurant. So they're going to have some type of dumpster, a trash enclosure, but would force them to go back to their the plans which showed the enclosure as stucco. But that is a decision, again, for the planning commission to make. My recommendation is that the request be denied. You have the authority to force them to do the enclosure as it was initially approved, or you could allow the material that they currently have. That is 100% within your domain this evening. So that's what's in front of you for. That action would take some type of motion if you are to take action on that this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for staff?
Is there any vinyl at all on that building?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And again, that plan was reviewed and accepted by all parties when it came up.
That's correct. Yeah. So in their initial submission, when this whole process started, they showed a detail that was compatible. That showed the stucco material that matched the architecture. That was really the last time it was even talked about. That was the plan that was submitted to this commission. That was the plan that was approved. We didn't focus on the materials because it was compliant. Just like with Sonic, I didn't really get into the details of it. Staff's opinion, it complies with architectural standards. It was the same thing with here. We felt the enclosure complied, and so it was the end of it.
So it basically was changed after the approval process.
It was.
Change.
Yeah, they did not construct what the approved plan stated, nor did they, before they installed it, ask. That's kind of what led to where we're at. It's kind of an enforcement action, and now they're asking for the approval.
On the ProFed building, when you had looked at that, when you said it was like a wood structure, was it like treated lumber, painted wood, or decorated?
It wasn't treated. It's not treated. I think it was intended to be stained or something, but it's basically cedar wood. Just, yeah.
Any further discussion?
Okay.
Thank you. I know this is not a public hearing, but I still would like to hear from MKS if they would like to come up and briefly state your case. Again, please state your name and address.
It's Becker, Michael Kinderen, Senior Project Manager. It is 6055 Innovation Boulevard, Fort Wayne, Indiana. So what arose throughout the really, it was after the building permitting process. We went ahead and submitted for building permits prior to us actually getting final contract with the owner. And during that time, the owner was looking at value engineering options to be able to financially make sense to tear down the old dilapidated Dairy Queen and then build up a beautiful brand new building. So from our internal pre-construction team, they were not aware of this ordinance. Believe me, they all do now. But also, how it arose was that way exactly. It was a value engineering option. Obviously, you guys all know a CMU wall is going to cost about $20,000 compared to this $5,000 option. So the owner saw that as an opportunity to really bridge that gap to make this a project a financially viable option. So that is why the owner requested that we did do this. And also during this phase too, as we were doing our final plan review, issuing out contracts to subcontractors, by looking at these drawings and what the initial architect initially approved and submitted for, one issue with stucco and ethos when you attach it to a CMU wall as shown in the current drawings, you'll get water that penetrates that CMU wall, which will create efference and then push out water in both directions. You can see it on many buildings downtown, even TQS that I built years ago. You can see the white glaring on that building. Well, what that causes to that stucco and that ethos, it'll start cracking. Like within a year, this ethos and stucco will start cracking. And even with that type of material that has dumpsters going in and out of it constantly, it's going to get damaged within 6 to 9 months. I would assume once, if and when we do have to do this, that it's going to be damaged and it's going to look 10 times worse than it does right now. So with this vinyl fence, it's easy to switch out slats and everything else. So that's why we told the owner to go to this, and then the owner's well aware. I even submitted a letter of commitment to the city that if you guys do plan on denying us, that by the end of May of this year, we can switch it out. Obviously, this isn't the type of weather to be laying block and let alone doing any stuff or ethos. So that's my only comments. If anybody has any questions.
Any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you. All right, any final discussion?
For this, would it be a recommendation for approving it or no recommendation at all, which would ultimately deny the request?
I was going to ask the city attorney on this because this is something a little bit different. I mean, I know if this was a council, we have an ordinance, we just would not have a motion and a second, and when it would die. Or do we need to vote either in favor of letting them do that or denying the request?
Yeah, you should have a motion one way or the other.
Okay.
Just to make it clear.
I guess my concern is, the last few months we've had issues where something was approved and it went the other way. And I guess I have a hard time accepting something, when it was supposed to be built this way, that we're not following through. And I'm afraid that would set a precedence that I don't know we want to go down. At least I personally don't.
No, I agree with that assessment. The ordinance would be pretty much worthless. Everyone would then come up and say either we do what they want on paper and then do what we want afterwards and then beg for forgiveness, or we do what we promised we're going to do, or go before the city and say, hey, we found this out, can we work something out before we move forward? So in this case, I agree with you that my opinion is we should agree with staff and deny the request.
Yeah, I agree with Mike's assessment of what the proper steps should be.
Yeah, I mean, I feel for you guys. I understand the logic in the situation and why you chose to do that, but the ordinance is the reason why we don't have treated lumber trash receptacles or fenced in all around town that will get decrepit over a couple of years. I get it, but again, like you said, set the precedence. If we said we approved it, then somebody else could do the treated lumber, and that's what I'm trying. That's what we want to avoid through the corridor.
Not to mention all the other projects we've approved that follow the regulations that Jim showed up there. I mean, they're going to come back to us and say, well, they didn't have to do it. Why did we? So.
I do see like on the tube, they took the bottom portion of that stone and used that for their room, which still is the same as the building. It complements the building.
But Jim, if I'm not mistaken, that was approved before they built it on the tube. The tube enclosure was approved.
Yeah, what they built is what
Yeah.
they showed on their plan.
That's what I'm saying. That's the difference.
My thought was if that stucco wasn't going to work, that maybe the stone that's on the bottom of their building could perhaps be used for the stucco.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion either to approve their request or to deny their request.
I would like to make a motion to deny the request of the Dairy Queen enclosure.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a unanimous vote. Okay, under reports, we have an address report.
Thank you. We have two items for your consideration for addressing. The first is addressing for Bear Creek Estate, Section 10. Now, this addition to Bear Creeks is under review, but has not gone through secondary plat. If you remember, the primary plat was approved earlier this year. So this is extending the Bear Creek subdivision to the south. But one of the requirements for secondary plat is to have addresses on the plat. And so we have drafted out proposed addresses for this section 10 for your consideration. We've routed that through all the agencies and it is ready for your consideration this evening. The second item under addressing would be this is the property that was formerly the Yeston address there on Cedar Street. Property was purchased. It's a commercially zoned property, and so they were taking the first floor of the building and creating office suites out of that. There is a dwelling unit on the second floor of this building, an apartment that currently uses a 4th Street address. The way the addressing works is if a unit has direct access to the outside, where you're from the outside directly to the unit, it has to have a separate and individual address. If there's a common door that goes in, such as the one off of Cedar Street here, it goes into the building, and then there are suites that are accessed. You have the one address for the door, and then you have suites for those that are accessed from interior of the building. So that's why you're seeing the 304 North Cedar Street address with unit A, B, and C. They have 3 suites available. And then the 2 other spaces they're adding off of 4th Street would be the 203 and the 205 East 4th Street. So they're going to have a total of 5 suites for rent. And then the second floor apartment maintains the address they currently have of 201 East 4th Street. And again, we routed these addresses through our emergency 911 personnel in the post office. And so that is what is being submitted to you this evening.
Thank you. Any questions? Need a motion, please?
Motion to approve the addresses.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Under reports, board members, anything from board members?
Yeah, question, Jim. Hearing MKS's feedback about the stucco and how that performs long-term for that environment, that might be something worth taking a look at, as well as the UDO review committee. And kind of as we start looking at potential degradation of materials, is that an appropriate material for that application?
I agree.
That raised a flag for me too.
What building did he say was showing leaks?
TQS.
Well, I mean, I had a stucco house.
Who's that?
I had a stucco house, and I know it can kind of, there's
You
a
get
lot
some
of, there's
situations.
maintenance involved. So yeah, I agree.
And I don't see building owner doing a significant amount of maintenance to their trash receptacle
Right.
over a long term, and we don't want to get into a bad situation there. So
Anything from city and county liaison?
County had no meeting in December.
lucky you.
Project advisory committee? Anything else? No? Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
City staff?
I can't. I'll be brief.
You can.
I thought it'd be just give you a little update on some projects. Most of the projects that come through the planning commission, you see it of. Of course, we've been talking about a couple of them with ProFed and Dairy Queen, Dollar General. If you get out on the east side of town, it's coming along very well. 7th Street Shops, which is the old Jiffy Car Wash where they tore down. Papa John's is going in there. That's the only tenant we know of going in there, but that building's coming along nicely. The Allendale Treatment Center facility that you approved, they've got their slab in for their activity center, but construction is kind of stalled on that project. Watson Estates, they are building homes back in Watson Estates behind the Home Depot and that. At this point in time, we've got, I think, 3 homes under construction. So that's good to see as well. Mike's Car Wash, we don't have the project you approved. I do believe that is nearing a date for closing, as we've been told. So hopefully that project moves forward soon. Hart and House has been, with their residential units. We haven't really heard anything on the status of that. The Auburn reconstruction of the former hotel is getting closer to fruition as well. The Auburn Workspace, if you remember, that was Robert Wacker's development up on Indiana by North Street. I know he's still considering that project, but it's kind of just on hold. The same with the I-69 flex space. That was Ben Schmaltz's.
With the duration since the approval, will that require to be resubmitted given it's been so long?
They did get, so they can request an extension, which the BPD administrator can grant. So for Robert Wacker, he was actually issued a building permit. So he is actually protected by that. For Ben Schmaltz's I-69 flex space, their deadline is coming up. They can request one extension of the development plan approval, but at some point, something has to happen with that. And a couple of other projects, the Auburn Woods, that was the project off of Potter Drive, the mixed use, the residential development up there. Keith Dedrick, I know I keep talking to Keith. He's still planning on moving forward with his townhome part of that project. Keith is also involved in the Henderson development down on 46A, if you remember that project. It was another mixed use. He's also involved in that. I believe that project will be coming back before you with some changes, though. That was industrial, a little bit of commercial, and some multifamily. I think that's going to morph into something different. We talked about Bear Creek Estates, and then Fieldstone, which is next to the YMCA, the soccer field. That project, again, another one that's kind of on hold. I think the residential projects are just faced with the financing cost, interest rates and whatnot. Those projects just don't seem to be moving forward at this time. But that was just a quick update of where some of these you don't necessarily hear about. There's still talks in the works on a few of them. But I just thought it was good to give you an update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was very nice.
Anything from city attorney? Anything from the public? Seeing none, our next meeting will be February 11th at 6 p.m. Need a motion to adjourn, please.
Move to adjourn.
A motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All in favor. Please turn off your microphones.